And let's go to our good friend Tim Brando. Tim, sorry about the wait there on McLean, but I figured you'd enjoy it. I know that you.
Oh, I love John. I love him. He's great. That was a bonus.
So Tim, we are to March Madness now. I'm curious your thoughts on. There's all this talk about expansion. I told Brett Yormark last year, just a year ago, we had him on the show because we were at Big 12 Pro Days, where we'll be tomorrow, that if he went to the games that he was going to tonight, walked seat for seat to every person and say, should we expand this? Only maybe one of them would have been like, sure, do whatever you want. All the rest of the people in the stadium would be like, no, this is perfect. Did the way that we've had this debate over the committee in North Carolina, Texas, Xavier, and of course, West Virginia, you got snubbed. Does that maybe point out that we have enough teams in this thing right now?
Well, it might be designed for that, fellas. I mean, it might, but we don't need more teams. I disagree with Brett on that. I know a lot of the commissioners, and certainly they're listening to their coaches. Coaches' jobs rely on whether they make it or don't make it, into the tournament in a lot of cases. If a coach goes, I mean, we just saw it at Iowa. Fran McCaffrey, a very accomplished coach, most successful, winningest coach in school history, misses two. Okay, he was there for 17 years, and he brought them the level of talent that they had never before seen. Not even under Dr. Tom Davis did they have that kind of talent. They won a Big Ten tournament title just a handful of years ago, and now he's done. And I don't know who Iowa's going to get. If they capture lightning in a bottle, fine. But the reality is that's what's at work here. The coaches' jobs are on the line. The ADs feel that because if they make a poor choice, then they get heat. And then the commissioners hear about it. But at some point, we got to be thinking about the fans and the viewers. And, college basketball's regular season is what needs to be fixed, not the postseason. Postseason's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more, Tim. This is a year for the one seeds that looks like it could go very, very well for them. They're all kind of set up well. Some years we have that, San Diego State and FAU vibe. I'm not getting that from this year just yet.
No, excuse me. I'm fighting some allergies having played some golf yesterday. So if I sneeze on you, I don't have a cough button or a sneeze button in front of me here.
We'll edit it out.
The reality is, you're right. This is a season where we see tremendous balance. I do think we're going to have a lot of upsets. I've got a lot of upsets in my bracket. I mean, a lot. But I do think whenever you have that happen, it opens the door for easier roads for those number ones. And I've got Auburn's going in. I got St. John's at 2. I got Duke and Houston. So I've got 3 of 4 ones and 1-2 as my final 4. Now, there's a chance that the SEC could get 3 in. I mean, they're that good. But I just don't think, from a matchup standpoint, all of them have as easy a road as a lot of people might think. Florida having to deal with St. John's, I think, is problematic. But again, we could have upsets early that impact that. I think those 8-9 games are going to take something out of teams. Florida, for instance, I think will play UConn. That's going to be a hard out. That's not going to be an easy one for them. You're playing a 2-time defending champion. Oops. Maybe you'll have to edit that out. Sorry. Excuse me. You're playing a 2-time defending champion that has a hell of a coach that knows how to win in tournament play. I mean, it's been, over 2 years since they lost a tournament game, an NCAA tournament game. So, I think that when you get to that road and you get to this part of the season, those that have traveled that journey, those that have been on this journey, have a distinct advantage. And even though I've got them getting through that game, I think it'll take a lot out of them. I just believe that St. John's will be the beneficiary of what UConn can do to give them a blueprint. St. John's is a far more complete team than UConn, but UConn is certainly good enough to scare Florida. And Florida looked unbeatable, really, the last month of the season. And I think a lot of times when teams peak at the end of the regular season and in their conference tournament, as Florida did, that can be problematic when you get to this tournament. I mean, it's just hard to keep that momentum going when you get into the NCAAs. I've seen it happen too often.
Yeah. You mentioned St. John's. Rick Pitino, he wins everywhere he goes.
Yep.
And St. John's in this era now of where they've pulled out all the stops that would stop them from competing with the big boys anymore when you've got NIL and the transfer portal. Now, he didn't really dive into it as much as maybe you would think. He enhanced the roster, but for him being there and bringing that program back, Tim, I'm sure you did some St. John's games back in the day when they were very relevant and they were a player. What does it mean to that city and that team to be back where their alums feel that they should be?
Did you know that most calorie deficit calculators don't work? My dietitian recommended the Lasta to me, and it turned out to be the only one that got my calorie deficit right. Thanks to it, I lost 14 pounds in 1 week. Ready to kickstart your journey to healthy weight loss? Calculate your ideal calorie deficit using the Lasta app right now.
You know, I missed the tournament this year, which sort of sucked. Hopefully we can remedy that. Fox sold off the first 5 games to Peacock, and I didn't get to work my usual games there. I really wanted to be there because I knew St. John's and that city was ready to go nuts with them as a top seed. And I really did feel that they would win it because they're so complete. I mean, they've got players, believe it or not, that a lot of people don't know that much about. Usually when St. John's is this good, everybody knows about their players. But I don't know outside the Big East who knows that much about Zuby Ejiofor, other than fans in the Big 12 that saw him ride the bench at Kansas, not get off the pine. I mean, that kid is big enough, strong enough to play with Florida's bigs. That's one of the reasons why I think they can get through it. I think the strength of St. John's is middle game, front court game, guys that can match Florida's depth in their front court to go along with a level of moxie and leadership. Kadari Richmond is a matchup nightmare. He's an NBA guard. I mean, he's every bit of 6'7", and he brings it up to, he gets downhill and really forces defenses to collapse, and that just releases guys for open shots. They don't win because of the three. It's maybe Rick's worst three-point shooting team to ever win a title. So many of those teams, the Kentucky teams, the Providence team in '87, that I saw a lot of, those were three-point shooting teams. This one isn't. But yeah, I mean, the days of Louis Carnesecca all the way through really until he retired, with guys like Boo Harvey and Jason Williams and so many other really great players, they were relevant even though they didn't make another Final Four. They got to an Elite Eight again under Louis after they went to the Final Four in '85. But I think that more people knew about the Johnnies personnel-wise around the country than do this year. At the beginning of the season, people were just wondering if they'd get into the tournament. And I remember doing a game in December when Ejiofor had his first of 2 buzzer beaters to win a game from the same spot on the floor. If you saw the buzzer beater he had on the road at Marquette to beat them on their senior day, the same kind of shot that he got off an offensive rebound back in December. I think it was December the 20th in Providence, which was a crushing loss. I don't think Providence ever really recovered from. But Zuby became, I think, one of the strong leaders of the team. They got 3 guys, R.J. Lewis, Zuby Ejiofor, and without the doubt, Kadari Richmond, that are matchup nightmares. When you've got 3 strong options like the Johnnies do, that can really serve you well. And they're all capable of beating you at the end, making plays themselves at the end. Ejiofor can now even put it on the deck a little bit. And he is a big-time force, back to the basket player, primarily in what they do offensively. So that's why I've got them going. And I think that ultimate, maybe the best regional final we could possibly see is Florida and St. John's, because, you know, Florida may be the most complete team that we've seen play in the last month and a half. I just think St. John's is a team that matches up really, really well with them. It's interesting because Florida is the 4th number 1 seed. You can make a case that they deserve to be where Auburn is from a bracketing standpoint, the overall number one, particularly the way they played late. But for whatever reason, it's funny. The committee keeps talking about their metrics, and they never take into account how teams are playing late. And it used to be the last 10 games mattered a lot to the committee. They've changed all that now, and it doesn't seem, unless it's an either-or team that could get in or not get in based on bid stealing, very rarely do the conference tournament championships mean a damn thing to the committee when it comes to seeding.
Yeah, well, I mean, just ask Oklahoma. They did not have a very fun second part of the season, and they're in the tournament now. They're rewarded with an angry UConn team. So.
Yeah, that is a bad draw for Oklahoma.
Yeah,
that is a really bad draw. Now, it's great that the SEC got all those teams in. I'm sure they're stoked about it. You certainly can make a case, and we're hearing it around the country that 6 and 12 or 8 and massive. 4 teams ended 8 and 10 in that league, but the committee has always said this isn't about the conferences at all when you're selecting these teams. It's about the teams, what they have accomplished, and the strength of schedule definitely plays a role. And, some of these teams played outstanding non-conference schedules, and that helped them. I mean, that's the excuse they're giving with North Carolina, okay? That is the excuse they're giving with North Carolina. It doesn't work with me, but that's the excuse that they're giving.
My favorite 12-5 matchup is Will Wade at McNeese State going up against his alma mater in Clemson, which could be his last ride at McNeese. I mean, NC State seems to really – I mean, at least the fans really want him. I think a lot of schools would really love to have Will Wade there. I mean, LSU's not been anything since he left, and he didn't move far away.
And by the way, what's wrong now with a strong-ass offer?
No, nothing.
Not a damn thing wrong with a strong-ass offer now. So, I mean, hell yeah, I want that guy. Any guy that's going to make a strong-ass offer, I want on my staff.
Yeah.
I've got them to the Sweet 16. I think they're going to win. I think they're going to win that game, and I think that's one of the places in my bracket where I've got a couple of upsets, and I think that that's going to be one of them. Brad Brownell's a great coach. His team made a run to the Elite Eight last year. I thought they got hosed at the end of the Louisville game, but in the tournament. But honestly, I do think it's a tough matchup for them because McNeese just, there are two teams that relentlessly attack offensively and just make it a miserable matchup, no matter how much better you think your team is. Grand Canyon is one, and under Bryce Drew, and McNeese is another. I don't think Bryce got a good draw this year, so I've got them getting knocked out early this time around. That's another guy, by the way, that I think may be leaving for brighter pastures. He's done a hell of a job to get that team to 3 consecutive NCAAs out of that conference.
Yeah, and from one of the great basketball families, as we know well here.
Absolutely. Yep.
Tim, last thing I'll ask you, Kelvin Sampson and the Houston Cougars are right there every year. They're just right there. I think because of the way that Florida and Duke and they'd have to play Duke in the Final Four more than likely and all that. But this feels like a team that if they stay healthy, because they play 3 kinds of games: good, really good, and great. They don't play bad ones.
No, they don't. And their defense always has their back. If it hadn't been for Shed getting hurt, I think we all know they would have made it last year. And I think they do make it this year. I like their draw. I do think they'll have a tough game with Tennessee in the regional finals. I think Tennessee is in a good position. And I think that half of the bracket's going to open up a little bit with maybe some upsets. Do you want to hear my 4, or do you want to hear my?
Yeah, I do. I'm curious.
My 4 are Auburn's. Well, I mentioned it earlier. I think Auburn, St. John's, Duke, and Houston are my 4 teams. Here are the major upsets that I have early. Okay, on my sheet, I've got UC San Diego beating the Big Ten tournament champions. I've got Yale taking out A&M. I think that this is the same kind of Yale team that beat Auburn. And this this A&M team is one that's new to the tournament. Buzz has got a tough matchup here, and I think Yale's going to be a problem for them. So I've got UC San Diego and Yale coming in the second round in that particular region. I think Iowa State's going to be pushed, but I think they'll get through to play Ole Miss. I think Michigan State will be in the Elite Eight with Auburn, but I think Auburn's got just too much They're too long. They're too good. And Michigan State wins with defense, but Auburn does too. So that's a bad matchup for Izzo to get to the Final Four this year, particularly. The other upsets that I see that are important that maybe are worth pointing out: High Point to beat Purdue and McNeese to beat Clemson. I think back-to-back upsets in that region, and McNeese to beat High Point before they play Houston in the Sweet 16. Xavier is a team that's got to play in the first four against North Carolina. Sean Miller's team is playing really, really well. If they don't turn it over, they beat people. They shoot a really quality percentage. Zach Fremantle is one of the best bigs in the country, and he's going to be a pro. And the biggest problem for them is at times they get sloppy with the ball. I think North Carolina's issues will be more on the defensive side too. So in that's a compelling first four game. As much as we are bitching and moaning and whining about Carolina getting in, look, they're there for a reason, and a lot of people are going to tune into that game. Is that one tonight or tomorrow? I think it may be tonight. But
North Carolina's tonight, right? Yeah, North Carolina's tonight. Yeah,
that's got a lot of viewers for that game, and I think Xavier will win it. And then I think Xavier will beat Kentucky in the next round, move on before they play Tennessee. I think the Xavier Tennessee game in the Sweet 16 will be a fun one to watch. So there's always an 11 seed. There's always somebody that comes out of the first four that makes at least a run to the second round and maybe even to the Sweet 16. This year, I think Xavier is going to be that team. So I see upsets, yes, no question about it. But I do think it'll be chalk in terms of getting to the Final Four. And San Antonio will be excited to have four teams like Auburn, St. John's, Duke, and Houston. I've got Houston beating Duke, and I've got Auburn winning it all because I just think they've got too much size, strength, and length for Houston. But it'll be a defensive-minded game. First one to 60 probably wins because it's going to be a rock fight probably in the national title game.
Tim Brando, usually we're talking football. Today we're talking basketball. Tim, love you. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you again soon.
You bet. Can't wait to do it. All the best and enjoy the madness. I know I will.
Yeah. Tim Brando, Fox Sports with us here on